Okay, I think we're in a pretty good place with this model, and I think the next step is to go ahead and freeze this out and start adding materials and textures to it. So first thing I want to do is click on the tooling item, and I'll go over to my Fusion properties here. Make sure we're on airtight final with parts, and everything else looks good. I'm going to go to duplicate and convert to mesh. I'll bring that panel up there, and we'll leave it the same name, and all these settings are the same. So I'm going to click create and give it a minute to do its thing. Okay, that took about 30 seconds or so, not too bad, and that gave us a pretty decent looking polygonal model. All right, so now comes the fun part. We get to select the parts of the polygons we want to add materials to, and as you can see, Mesh Fusion already created a whole host of material names for me. If I want to go through and select those, we could actually open up the stats window here and go through here and select by material, or excuse me, just go ahead and select that item and select by material. And you can see that it gives us all these great parts to select if you want to do that. I mean, the sky's the limit. You can select any of the polygons you want to select and create materials for those. However, for the most part, it really hasn't given me the kind of polygon groupings that I want for the materials that I want to place on here. So what I'm going to do is kind of ignore all this. Of course, we could go to the groups as well if we want to look at the select by groups. So yeah, you can do that. However, since I only really want 3 materials on this object, I'm going to select things in a slightly different way. All right. So what I like to do is select edge loops and split them off to create logical polygon islands that I can use to select and assign material groups to that. So I'll show you how that works. Okay, first of all, just make sure I'm in edge mode, and then come over and select a edge, double click on it to select that entire loop. Go over to the edge toolbox there and hit split. And I'm just going to leave the settings as is with no gap. And there we go. Now jump over to the polygon mode, click on any one of those polygons, select that entire island, hit the M key to bring up the materials assignment panel and give it a name. In this case, I think I'll call it Inner Soul. Click OK, and then hit the H key to hide the group of polygons. And I always like to hide the polygons after I've created a material group on them, so it makes it easier to select the other ones. I'll go back into edge mode and double click on one of those edges for the inset panel. And I'm going to split that off. And now I'll just go ahead and move over to the center spine area here. And I'll go ahead and start clicking on a logical edge loop where I want to separate that object and create an independent material. It looks like I've got everything I need selected there, so let's just go over to the edge panel and hit the split button there and click OK. Jump over to polygons, just select one of the polygons on each of those panels there and hit the close bracket key to select all the attached polygons to that. Hit the M key, assign a material, click OK, and hit the H key to hide those. There we are. Okay, so before we move on, I want to give you a handy little tip here. So if you decide you want to select by materials or selection sets or by parts, you'll notice that this little panel here is kind of limited in its size and you're doing a lot of scrolling. Well, wouldn't it be nice if you could just make your own little edge panel and have whatever information you want in it. Well, you can with this little plus button. Now, I've already done one for A, so I'll do a new one for a custom B panel. And I'll expand that and then click on it to open it. And there's nothing in there, as you can see. So I just go to that little almost invisible arrow at the upper right hand corner and drag down and go to where it says info and mouse over to info and statistics, and you have that statistics window right there where you need it. And it's much easier to scroll through a lot of lists in this window than it is the little stats tab on the side there. So the next thing I want to do is go ahead and get rid of a lot of these materials that I'm not going to be using. So I'll go to texture, drop down menu up here, and go to purge unused materials. And that's going to purge most all those materials. Now there may be a few that it misses. If it does, let's just check it out, see if we actually need it. And if that is assigned to any polygons, it should show up there. And I don't think it is, so let's go ahead and delete this one. And we've got center spine, the outer, the inner, and the midsole. So yeah, those are the 4 that I actually have active here. So the next thing I need to do before I start applying my materials is add a UV map. And I'm just going to open the UV editor panel right there. And let's see, let's go over to the UV toolbox. And I want to actually add a UV map to just the bottom of the sole, that kind of yellowish area there. So I'm going to go to my materials, and I'm going to select that, and I'm going to hold down the Option key and convert those selections to polygons. And then I'm going to go over to my UV projection tool here, and let's create a new UV first of all. I'll just call this sole bottom, should be called outer sole, I believe. And so the projection type, I'm going to project this from view. And to do that, I'm going to go to the bottom view here. And I'm going to select from view, click in this viewport, and it creates a perfect UV map for my sole right there. UV map for my sole.